Coming up on the St. Paul Neighborhood Network Forum, today I am chatting with Angel Even of Led by Truth. Stay tuned. Hi, Angel. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Anahita?
Wow. I'm so glad you could be here today. You do so many amazing things, and particularly Led by Truth. We're going to chat about that. But before we get into Led by Truth, which is your organization, why do you do the work that you do? Like, what drives you to do the work you do?
Yeah, great question. I will say I happened upon this by happenstance, but it was also just a mix of a little bit of frustration and just wanting to do good and see good happening. So a little bit of backstory. I'd spent over 12 plus years in healthcare, which I loved. And I worked the last 8 or so of those years as an executive coach and consultant, helping with system strategy, as well as coaching and growing leaders in the teams that they oversee. But during my time in healthcare, I found myself to be the only one, or the exception to a lot of the rules, exception to my team, as sometimes only person of color. And the last year of my time in healthcare, I just found myself very frustrated that my experiences were not the same as my peers. Of course, we've encountered a lot of hurdles and pushback, but it was a different amount of pushback that I received compared to my peers when it comes to cultivating that environment of, like, let's look at our processes a little bit different. Okay. Plus, corporate settings a little bit different. Felt like work was being pushed at people versus ensuring that they are set up for success to capture and catch and carry on that work onto their units. But I founded Led by Truth. The idea came in 2020 when I wanted to just create a space that was positive, encouraging, and nurturing for individuals that look like me. Okay. To kind of take the helm and control over where they're going in life. Sure. And hopefully nurture individuals who have those talents, but maybe they're applying those talents in a field that they're not really passionate in. So connecting the two, when did you leave your work in the medical industry? Yeah, so. And did you have overlap with Led by Truth? How did that transition work? Yeah, there was definitely overlap. In the dream and ideal world, I would have everything I needed and then dive headfirst into Led by Truth. But life is lifing, and the reality is a lot of business owners do not have the funds financially to start their business and also fund their living and life expenses. Right. So I did have to work full time as I went and also grew Led by Truth also full time, which was a lot, and it felt definitely like double duty. I'd say left healthcare in 2020. Transferred into a role my first year after leaving healthcare that allowed me enough space and time to work on my business, and then fully went in and was paying myself for the work that I was doing for Led by Truth. Important to do so. Very important. You should pay yourself. Yes. And if you're not in a place of being able to pay yourself right away for your business, even if it's a little bit, that is something. Yes. Just to be reimbursed for the time and labor that you pour in to your work. But in 2023 actually was when I first started to pay myself fully, as well as bring on other consultants and pay our amazing mentors and advisors for the work that they did. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Led by Truth. Yeah. What is your mission with the organization? And then I'll ask you the second question in a second. So with Led by Truth, our mission is to foster a safe and nurturing space for founders of color to take their dreams and bring it into reality. Our biggest thing is, how can we cultivate change agents into the community? How can we amplify representation, not only representation for other businesses of color, but also in mentorship. I find myself, I've never had a person that looked like me be my mentor. And it's not saying that's a real negative, but there's a difference. There's a difference in how the advice is given. There's a difference in how it hits and resonates with you. And that lived experience is something that you really can't substitute, from my opinion.
Right.
And the other piece with Led by Truth that we're really working on doing is just continue to be an advocate, and find other ways to help communities of color to cultivate and around building wealth, community wealth within their communities, within their families, within their neighborhoods.
That is so powerful. Thank you for doing that work. And what has the response been since you started Led by Truth, with who you've partnered with, the mentors, advisors? There's coaching, there's the cohort.
Yeah.
Talk about that relationship.
Yeah, the response has been great. I'd say we've grew our demand, and right now we're working on right sizing to meet that demand internally with our capacity. But with Led by Truth, we have a couple different ways that we can support founders of color as they are building their wealth, but also just building out their dreams. One is our flagship program, which is our mentorship program. It's 12 months long. It's free for founders of color to, if they are accepted into the program, to enroll in. This year we are in our third cohort. I want to say to date, we've had our 2 cohorts. We're wrapping up our last one, but we've dispersed over $13,000 in grant funding. Wow. A lot of those funds have been through us earning, through our contracts that we have and earned revenue, just because our pathway as a nonprofit founded by a Black woman is a little bit different than some nonprofits. But this program has been great. We will be launching our third cohort, and we'll be supporting 4 amazing individuals. Hopefully we'll be able to do some announcements come closer to April. But there's other ways too that we support founders. So we also have, outside of our program, our flagship program, Sprouting Series, and that's for early stage, idea stage businesses or business owners who may not understand the steps to take to create a sustainable business, or maybe they just want to take a step back. Maybe they launched a couple years ago and they had this vision, they had this dream, they're super excited, they launched their business, and now they're like, holy cow,
Wait a
I
minute.
need to take a few steps back. And
It's a lot. It's a lot.
it's a lot. No one goes into business because they are passionate about finances or passionate about developing out systems and processes.
I don't.
No, and those are the things we lean away from, and we get very focused on the shiny, which is like marketing and make fun, beautiful posts and networking, which is important. But it's all these other aspects that really help you define the health of your business that you really need to focus on.
That's really well-rounded, and so I'm so glad that you and your advisors and mentors and your team focus on that, because in order to have a successful outlook, I mean, I've also owned businesses. What you don't know can be empowering. Once you get there, it can also hurt you. I didn't realize you have to play HR, admin, tech support, marketing, networking, sales,
It's
finance. So that's wonderful you do that. When is your next cohort starting? It sounds like you have one coming up.
Yeah, so applications are open right now for the Bloom Mentorship Program. So applications are open through March 3rd, I believe, or 4th. And then we'll be making our decisions that following week on some interviews, and then making our selections at the end of March. But program will officially start on the 4th Monday in April, which I believe is April 22nd. Okay. Don't quote me on that, but it's the 4th.
That's a lot of numbers you're memorizing there. That's pretty amazing.
As you know too, we have so much going on in our head as business owners. We are constantly, our wheels are always spinning.
And you can't really turn it off. You're probably, hopefully going on vacations and turning it off, but laying in bed and thinking of the next best thing, or what could I have done differently, or how can I expand this? And I really like that you have the metaphor of planting. You mentioned sprouting, you mentioned bloom. Why are you using that around the formula that you have? Because there's other terminology there too.
Yeah, we also have Flourish Together, which is for later stage founders, and that will be launching in May, but that's on developing out a strategic plan.
Is that a new one?
That will be a newer one. We had transitioned from one-on-one coaching. So a lot of this I've done one-on-one with some later stage businesses. They're looking a little bit more established, have revenue and traction going, but are looking to expand a little bit differently. So we work on developing out a strategy.
So could you say the Sprouting Series cohort could graduate, if you call it that, and work with you on the Flourish?
Yep, yeah. There's a couple different ways in how we've designed Led by Truth's programming it can be a resource when businesses and founders get to different stages. The one thing, though, I always make it clear, we are not forever. My biggest goal is to allow that individual that is behind wearing that CEO hat grow as a leader as well. So how can we insert and help them grow their own skill sets and knowledge? I describe it as like muscle memory. Okay. As we're going through developing out a business plan, you're now learning a new muscle memory on evaluating your business that you can now incorporate and use a year later or down the road. But there is a little bit of background behind the naming convention. Okay. So something that I always, not gonna lie, sometimes I forget about this past life of mine.
No one needs to know all the details.
But I grew up in the floral industry. So I was adopted. My adopted mom actually had a floral business. We did dried arrangements. So we were the ones, and by we, it's like my siblings and I. Right. I have a brother and two sisters. So we'd literally be out in a ditch, like gathering some flowers from fields, if it's baby's breath or heather or cattail. We would go out and gather.
A very organic approach.
It is very organic. We would have to dry those. Cops sometimes would stop and be like, what are you guys picking? We're like, literally plants, like the plants that are growing out here. So it was interesting because we would travel around the States to different trade shows. We'd have different booths, so I would have to man a booth when I was younger. But I also created and sold my own floral arrangements too when I was younger. So it was like from time I was 8 to 12, I'd say heavily involved in.
An entrepreneur self.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way when I was younger.
No, you didn't, and we didn't either when we started those lemonade stands. If you're just tuning in now, we are chatting with Angel Even of Led by Truth, and we are just talking about the programs that you have, Sprouting program, the mentorship, which is Bloom, and then you have Flourish together. Yes. And is there more to this?
No, our biggest thing is through, so with Led by Truth, we know we can't do it all, and we can't make the change that we want to see with creating a more equitable ecosystem for entrepreneurs of color without collaboration. So we do partner and collaborate a lot in the ecosystem with other organizations doing impactful, amazing work. Actually, part of this is even thinking through how we can continue to elevate and expand our impact beyond the walls, virtual or physical walls of Led by Truth. So we're going to be collaborating with Connect Up, which is exciting. We've been collaborating with them for the last couple of years, from speaking at some of their summits and mini summits, as well as we do a lot of referrals to them, and we support founders sometimes at the same time, but in different perspectives and avenues. But this year I'll be a coach with them as they've acquired Lunar Startups, which is exciting. So I'm super excited to continue to be involved in that program as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of affiliates that are part of Led by Truth. So props to you on having so much energy and passion for what you do, because it's not so much that you're just operating a program, you're fostering these deep relationships with the community. Let's talk more about your mentors and advisors, and then I want to hear a little bit more about your relationship with the board and how moving forward. I have so many questions. Let's start with the mentors and advisors. Where do they come in? How do they help support?
Yeah, so our mentors and advisors, who I absolutely adore, so they have been pouring into our founders in our Bloom Mentorship program. So A little bit backstory. The first year, I mean, again, I wasn't paying myself. I couldn't be in a place to pay my mentors and advisors, and I was so fortunate the first cohort that they'd be willing to do it for free. But going forward, I want to pay and acknowledge the voices, the diverse voices that are showing up at the table, and I think a lot of times individuals of color are always tapped and asked to volunteer and volunteer their geniuses for free. Sure. And I was excited last year we were able to be at a place to pay every person that comes through their door to show up for the founders that we support.
Congratulations. That's a big milestone for you.
Yeah, I volunteer my time a lot too. I would love to get paid for some of the stuff I volunteer for, but I knew I wouldn't be able to speak our own truth if we didn't, follow the same steps that we're advocating for. Sure. But our mentors, so in the Blue Mentorship Program, each founder gets a dedicated coach. Now that coach is working with them on like a set deliverable. It is, I wanna develop out these new strategy for the year, or develop out a business plan, or help me grow as a leader so I can help my team grow. Sure. Whatever that deliverable is, sure, that coach is working side by side with that founder. Now, how mentors and advisors are leveraged a little bit different, because those are two different roles, different individuals.
Okay, so you have a participant in the cohort.
Yep.
Who's blooming.
Yes.
With the support of a coach.
Yes.
To rock that out. Meanwhile, you have the mentors and advisors that supplement.
Yeah,
okay,
so they bring a little bit different aspect and level to the program. Now our mentors, I don't remember earlier on when I said I've never had a mentor that looked like me. So we are surrounding our founders with like a melanated cocoon of support. So we like surround them in a nice warm hug. But our mentors are other business owners of color in the ecosystem. They may be from a different industry, maybe different focus, but there's something about their own personal business journey that's similar, that can resonate and help that founder. So I do the matchmaking when it comes to pairing up the resources and support for with the founders. But that mentor is really meant to be like, I want to be a sounding board. It is informal. It is catching up over coffee if it's virtual or in person. But I am here to just check in on you because, as you know, too, as a business owner, it's lonely. Of course, our family and friends know what it's like to work and be tired after work.
But they don't really get what it's like to do what we do.
Yeah, and when you said like we can't turn it on, we think about it at night, we think about it in the morning. It is a different, tired and different type of work and different type of weight on your shoulders, because that weight means, can I make payroll? My benefits aren't always guaranteed, because if something doesn't happen, then what does that look like for me? Right? So it's a little bit different responsibility, not saying it's more important or anything like that, but it brings a different element of stress and anxiety. Sure. That speaking with a peer and just speaking with a peer without any other obligations. If they want to talk business, they can. If they want to talk a little bit of like, how do you balance personal and business, like that is a resource for them too.
Right. Harmonize is the word that people are saying right now. Balance, what's balance? And especially for a lot of these founders, they're super passionate about what they do, that it is their life.
Yes.
So integrating maybe working hours versus personal time. I mean, truly you have created this, you've used ecosystem, and I'm gonna say that back, this beautiful ecosystem. What is it called when plants go into like a house, like a greenhouse? You've made this greenhouse of freshness and safety, and it's nurturing. Gosh, I'm rocking it with these metaphors, but you're blooming, right? And then you have your coaching and mentorship advisors. It's going to be no surprise when folks go to your website, which is?
Yes, it is www.ledbytruth.org.
And they will see that I am listed, my face, as an advisor. So it has, on a team effort, it's been really great to hear from these participants about what their questions and concerns are, and how much they love what you're doing. So hats off to you on that. So in order for you to feel supported as a founder, you have a board of directors and you have partners in the community. What does that look like with the relationship, and what do you need more support on?
Yeah, so it's sometimes the nonprofit world can get confusing for some folks who aren't involved in it. I've been fortunate enough to also have sat on a board and chair a board previously, non-related type of industry than what I'm in now.
Sure.
But the piece around the board, so I have amazing board of directors. Usually when you're starting a business, especially if you're starting a nonprofit, you always tend to pick some folks that you are somewhat familiar with. I'd say I did that, but also I kind of added on to that. There were some key individuals on my board who I reached out to, may not have had the closest relationship, but there's something about them that just spoke to my heart and how they showed up in the community. Because I want intentional folks around that table. So everyone on my board are either have past histories in consulting and strategy work, or are business owners themselves, or have worked with a emerging startup, but their biggest connection is just wanting to do good in the community.
Right.
And they've been just a rock star thought partnership for me, which has been amazing. They've helped to challenge my own thinking. It's never great to have a board that thinks just like you.
Right, you want a little bit of back and forth to
Yeah.
enhance and grow you and the organization.
Yeah, that's the only way. And if you're thinking about it, from my seat as the CEO, my own mentorship, right? They are helping to oversee the strategy of the organization, but also to nurture and help me grow too as a leader. That is also the role of the board.
It's so important.
Yeah.
So you have not just waken up from a nap and had all this success overnight. You've had a little bit of some challenging times or obstacles. I know because we've chatted, but for those that are just learning about Led by Truth, can you share what has been one of maybe your biggest frustrations, and what can you ask for the community in return to help support you and the organization?
Yeah, I'd say, I will admit, there was a small period when I first launched Led by Truth that I had a very Pollyanna thought process on how this would go, my entry into the entrepreneur space here in Minnesota. And I was thinking oh my goodness, I am now at the wheel, and I get to decide on who I get to work with, and I no longer have to continue to prove my legitimacy as a human, as an expert in my craft. And I was quickly shot back down to the ground within the first couple of months. I'd say the biggest frustration has honestly been the lack of legitimacy placed on, especially businesses of color, but specifically in the nonprofit industry, Black women-founded organizations. For me, I've had questions such as, well, don't you do the same thing as this organization? Shouldn't you just merge with them? Or when I try to expand on the rationale around representation and mentorship representation amongst those that you're supporting, especially if you're focused around communities of color, I kind of get shot down and be besides the representation, what's the difference here between you and them? And
that's a big one.
Yes. And, I did my best because I was in a work setting and had to, our suit of armor as individuals of color is our smile. So put on a smile and explain to the best that I can why representation matters and why there's a difference.
So for some folks that aren't aware, those are called microaggressions. And they're not even that micro at this point, because it's diminishing your personal journey that has led you to create this. It's leading you to speak and live the truth, and also making yourself stand out as a go-to person in the community for supporting others similar to you with similar paths. So I could ask you endless questions. Unfortunately, we are running a little low on the time we have for today. If folks want to get in touch with you, learn more about how they can support the organization, one, what's the main ask you have for them? And two, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, I'd say our main ask, especially if you do want to support Led by Truth's mission, is to get involved. And there's a couple ways that you can get involved. We are launching, again, around community wealth building. How can we do things different? There is power in numbers and power with community coming together to have a voice in how we build that wealth. So we have launched 2 giving circles. We're going to be putting out an ask and an invitation to the community to be involved in helping us build that out and what that looks like and feels like.
Okay.
How we can continue to have this be community driven and led versus feeling like an organization's dictating this. Again, this is beyond me. It's not about me. It's about those that we're supporting. So I welcome you to get involved with that. And you can find that out on our website, again, ledbytruth.org. But also, donate to our mission.
Yes. And those links are on the website to be
Yes,
able to make
those
a
links
donation.
are on the website.
Sure.
Yeah, I want to say about 70 to 75% of our revenue actually comes from earned revenue through our contracts versus grants, donations, and it's, again, our path forward looks a little bit different in this ecosystem that is, growing and emerging when it comes to creating equity.
Growing, blooming,
Yes.
blossoming, flowering. Well, it's been a joy to have you here. I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and thank you for sharing the story of Led by Truth. For those that want to tap in more, it's ledbytruth.org. I personally know this, but you're on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Yes.
And hire Led by Truth, donate to Led by Truth. That is all we have for today with Angel Even of Led by Truth. Thank you so much again for watching. I'm your host, Anahita Champion, and we will see you on the next episode.